The staking options for ETH offered by the likes of Lido and Coinbase are an absolute joke, so I took it upon myself to find the best staking and farming alternatives that yield more than measly 3.8% APR. Here's the 4 projects and farms that offer the highest yield on ETH. JonesDAO is a protocol on Arbitrum chain that offers an options vault for Ethereum yielding 7.56% APY. At the start of every month, you can deposit your ETH into this vault, which will then be used by JonesDAO to write a series of ETH covered calls at different strike prices through Nexus Protocol, thus earning you yield. Due to the nature of writing covered calls, the ETH in the vault cannot be withdrawn until the end of the month. So in return, you are given a liquid jETH token, which acts like a ticket for the ETH you've deposited. jETH is a yield-bearing token, which means that over time, jETH will be redeemable for more ETH than before. At the moment, every 0.99 jETH can be redeemed for 1 ETH. 7.56% APY is pretty juicy in of itself, but you can actually get much higher yield by providing liquidity to the jETH ETH liquidity pool. Since jETH is backed by ETH deposited into the vault, you're essentially providing liquidity to a pool with ETH on both sides, so there should be very minimal impermanent loss. You can stake the liquidity pool tokens in the JonesDAO farm and earn an additional 13% APR paid out in JonesDAO tokens. Since one side of the LP is jETH, you're still earning 7.56% on that, so your total yield on this strategy will come to around 17% APR. That's probably the highest yield you can currently get on ETH. Now let's talk about the risks. First of all, writing covered calls is not a risk-free strategy. If let's say ETH suddenly goes up by 100%, a portion of covered calls will be in the money, which means that ETH from the vault will be sold at strike prices specified for each covered call. That's not as catastrophic as you may think. You will get the majority of the ETH back, but we're here to make money and not lose money. That actually hasn't happened with the ETH vault yet, but it has happened with the Geom and Dopex vaults. The Dopex vault is currently sitting at negative 10% APY. That doesn't mean that people that use this vault lost 10% of their deposit value. It's just that the vault is over 1 month old, and the first month it saw a negative yield of 0.83%, which ends up being negative 10% annualized. And we don't know how this vault will perform in the upcoming months, so it's difficult to predict whether this APY will stay negative. I'm not too worried about this myself. It seems like any potential losses could be offset by the yield earned through providing liquidity to the ETH jETH liquidity pool, since ETH is not as volatile as something like Geom or DPX. Next up, we're moving on to Harmony Network's yield aggregator called FarmersOnly. They've got an ETH vault that currently yields 8.6% APY. I know the name of this protocol may suggest that any funds deposited here will go to hot lonely horse girls in your area, but that's definitely not the case. When you deposit your funds into this vault, that ETH is supplied to be lent out through Tranquil Finance, but that would only earn you 1.3% APR. So how are they able to offer over 8% APY? Well, they borrow more ETH against the ETH they supplied and supplied back on Tranquil Finance, which increases yield. Since they're borrowing ETH against ETH, there is no risk of liquidations since collateral is the same as the asset borrowed. So this is a great passive strategy to earn a fairly high yield on your ETH. But what's the catch? Well, the catch is that there is a 0.2% withdrawal fee. That means that if you deposit your ETH into this vault, the first 2 weeks you will be earning the ETH that will be collected as fees if you decide to withdraw. This is one of those strategies where you have to commit to this vault for the medium to long term to see the value. And just like with any DeFi protocol, you are exposing your tokens to smart contract risks like exploits and drugs, so be mindful of that as well. Next up is Index Coop's icETH token. This one is on Ethereum mainnet, so be prepared to pay very high fees. The way this token works is pretty similar to FarmersOnly Vault, but they're doing the borrowing loop with staked ETH and ETH on AAVE, which allows you to earn 9.5% APY. So they take your ETH, go to Lido, convert it to staked ETH, then go to AAVE, deposit staked ETH as collateral, then borrow more ETH, then go back to Lido and do this process again. Since staked ETH earns 3.8% APR, looping it multiple times through AAVE allows you to earn higher yield because you end up holding more staked ETH from looping it. The risk of getting liquidated is extremely low, since staked ETH has very deep liquidity against ETH, so the peg is pretty strong. The downside of this strategy is that there is once again a withdrawal fee, they call it streaming fee here. It's 0.25%, which is pretty hefty, but it seems like a lot of ETH farming strategies can't escape those high fees, so if you're bullish on ETH and you want to farm it long term, it's still a good idea. And last but not least, we've got nETH Vault on Spectrum Protocol on Terra. This one only yields 7.4% APY, but I personally really like this option because of the very low transaction fees on Terra. This strategy uses two other protocols under the hood to achieve this yield. The first one is Nexus Protocol, which takes your bETH, deposits it into Anchor, which is the second protocol for the strategy, and borrows UST against it. Then Nexus deposits UST into Anchor and starts collecting yield on it. The rewards are paid out in PSI token on Nexus, but if you use Spectrum, you can make it auto-compound your rewards so you don't have to do anything. And once again, there is a pretty big fee of 0.1% for deposits on Spectrum, which sucks, but I think it's worth paying for the auto-compounding of your rewards. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, just deposit your funds on Nexus and collect your rewards at any time you want.